sort of influence do you think the sort of pop business and the pop music has had on American youth?
American youth?
Yeah.
I think we've shattered America as far as show business. The word show business doesn't mean much, I'm sure. You see, 10 years ago, you had Frankie Lane tour in England. It was a big thing, and when you've got, he was filling theatres and everything. When you've got sort of local boys doing it, it puts a much different light on the matter. It really is. And when it happens, it's happened the reverse thing over in America as well. We've gone over there as just ordinary people, really. You know, it's very strange. There is no longer, I don't think, there's a professional cult, but there's not a show business cult. There's still people that believe it, but I don't think that there is a thing. Barbra Streisand is probably the newest example of showbiz. And I don't think I think America swallow her for being showbiz. Americans love showbiz, but that she hasn't been the big thing here because she is too much of a showbiz thing, I think. But I think in American show business, they through having this appeal of being the best in the world in show business, this sort of thing, they've created some of the best.
Yeah.
They really have. But I think what the biggest thing that British groups have done, starting with the Beatles, and that have proved that there really isn't anything in it, although there may well be, but it isn't what people see on the stage as. It's not a gold and glistening life that people, when they think of Frank Sinatra, they think that's what it is, really. I mean, they don't think of him with a headache.
They've cut out the glamour of it, and they sort of feel that anybody could sort of be a success.
Yeah, maybe I'm looking at it from an Englishman's point of view. You know, maybe they do see us as glamorous, gold-studded people, but I mean, I'm sure they don't in England. Kids don't. I think there's a lot of American kids that don't also. You know, it's very strange.
How do you think? Do you think there's any comparison then between this sort of acceptance of yourselves and pop music? How does it compare to the sort of legends and the acceptance of real jazz? You know, the real jazz musicians and the New Orleans jazz voices, that sort of thing.
There again, what jazz is totally.
Well, I mean, the sort of jazz people that you like, and the music you copied, the rhythm and blues people in the beginning. I mean, their music was a sort of religion, wasn't it? It was something that they sort of accepted.
Yes, but it's also it was not considered an art form at all, in the sense that people who played it were not really very good musicians. Apparently, they were just Negroes playing the trumpet, and people like Louis Armstrong and people like that have made that into an acceptable thing. As great as he is, he still made jazz an acceptable thing. You see, it's very strange, because that's another facet of America that you can't really understand, is the Negro. Because our music, we're selling our music back to American boys who probably never even heard of the people who we copied half of it from. This was in the beginning, but I suppose influences, yes. We're selling our influences back, our way of doing it. Maybe it's more acceptable the way we do it. Although I can't very well answer a lot about that, because I'm just part of the thing, you know. I don't actually create the songs or anything. But you know, I think the Beatles, you know, when you get a version of Long Tall Sally by the Beatles sold 500,000 records, and you've got Little Richards, which is 10 times better, selling 300 copies, although it was a hit record, I know, but I mean that sort of thing, then it's just remodelling a thing and making it acceptable. And it's only acceptable because the Beatles have done it. And the same thing with us. We probably sold more records of something like let me think, something like Little Red Rooster than Howlin' Wolf ever thought of. But all we did was just do our version of Howlin' Wolf's Little Red Rooster, and yet it's sold. You know, it's a very funny thing. I suppose it's the rapping they buy.
Well, this is what it's not just that, it's the rapping of the mass media, isn't it? That's what it is, right?
I don't understand that really.
In other words, they're rapped by television. I mean, they're rapped by the fact that the mass media gets hold of
Yes, you
themselves.
see, yeah, well the mass media, I mean, well if you're television then, I call it television, you call it mass media. Television has got to have something that's entertaining, it's got to have something that's nice to look at. Although it doesn't have to, but that's what they put on it. And so Howlin' Wolf singing a song is not very acceptable as far as selling a record goes, as some good-looking white boy singing about the same song, but it's got a totally different meaning when he sings it. To them, anyway.
Do you see anything sort of sinister in all this?
What, in the mass media?
No, in the sort of development of all this sort of influence and power that young people have and so on?
No, not at all.
You think it's...
I think that it can get a bit sad at times, but I can't really answer that. You'll have to scrub that question out.
Yeah, that's all right, yeah, fine. Now, I mean, we were talking about showbiz and all that sort of thing. How do you think being a success like this has influenced you as a person?
Well, I no longer think, unfortunately, about spending £5. That really is the only difference it's made to me. If something is £5 and I like it, I buy it. But it really probably isn't worth £5, although it might be to me. I know you've got 100 different answers for this, because if it's worth it to me, then I should have it. But I really don't think about spending £5. £100 I do, but not £5.
Do you think it's changed your attitude to people?
No, I think it's changed people's attitude to me. I don't think it's my... I think that whereas before I would sit in a cafe, or when I was working, I'd go to dinner with a crowd of... And you all had a thing whereby you had a luncheon voucher and threepence to spend. But now, if I had a luncheon voucher and threepence to spend, it would be such a ridiculous thing in people's eyes for me to go in a place and say, I'll have 3 cheese sandwiches with mustard and pickle, and it would be, they would think, well, what's over him? What's he doing? He's probably only doing this to meet people or something. I don't know. I get that feeling. Maybe it's a silly thing, but it really has changed people's attitude to me. Success, because it hasn't changed me. I can't really answer that because it's me. I mean, I probably think I'm gold, but in other people's eyes, I'm probably very flash or something. But I don't know. It really, as far as my outlook on things, it hasn't changed. It's helped me accept a lot of things and appreciate a lot more things. Success. Maybe that's because I didn't think about them before.
Yeah,
Success, really, the way I'm talking about is money, not adulation or anything, because I really don't consider that anything.
No, but success and money, of course, enables one, as you said, to do things, meet people, have more power in various different ways and that sort of thing, and it does open one's eyes.
Yeah, well, this is it, you see. I mean, when I ring up for a taxi and someone says, we can't get round there for 4 hours, and you say, okay, all right, and he said, where was it from? And you say where you live. They say, oh, righto then, Mr. Watts, we'll see. And there'll be a taxi there within 30 minutes, where some bloke who's probably, but I suppose that it's nice in a way, because if you sit back, you can accept a hell of a lot, which is not a very nice thing to do, I don't think. But there again, it's not very nice to have people keep coming up to you saying, your record's still one, isn't it? I mean, it's sort of so ridiculous that you can't you just say yes.
The film's run out, but go on, carry on.
No, I think that it's just changed other people's opinion.
That was a very good answer, actually. one always imagines the person sort of inside, sort of battling it, but it's true. That's the worst thing of it. People change their attitude to you. You know, I went down to Tiles the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Filming in Tiles. Now you see, it's an extraordinary place because it belongs to the kids. You know, it's theirs, and they got their little streets. Have you been in there?
No.
They've got little streets down there, and they call it Tiles Street. And hey, that's good fun. They've got their own little street, Tiles Street. You know, and they've got their own shops, and the girls can have.
Where is it?
There. This is on Oxford Street.
Who opened it?
I don't know, some sort of guy, and he has pop groups there, and they pop groups play there.
That's the only reason I know it.
78 hours at a time. You know, they just play 78 hours at a time. And the kids go in there, and they come from work, and they have a manicure for £1/4, and a face pack for £1/4, and they've got record shops, shoe shops, and everything, all in this sort of cavern place under the ground in Oxford Street. But there's nothing sort of, they're just there, they're happy. And, you know, they've got their own sort of thing. It's really a sort of religion, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's really rather fantastic.
Really doesn't last though.
I wonder how long it all lasts.
No, well it won't last long because as soon as the kids get old enough it won't last any time.
No, but there'll be more kids.
Yeah, and they create something completely new and ridiculous and people will say how outlandish. How can you have shoulder... What are they going to create next?
What's going to be created next?
I don't know, unless a thing like... I don't know. I don't really know. What do you mean, clothes and things like that? Or you mean music or something?
Music?
I don't know, because unless a big thing happens like happened here 4 years ago, the groups became very popular and that. It will just get very boring and the top groups will make hit records. It'll be just like it is now, I think. But not forever, but I mean, as long as they care to recall, I suppose.
How do you see your own music and your own group developing in the future?
Develop? I don't know. I think it's getting better.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to, when Mick and Keith first were, I mean, these are the people you should be talking to really about this because I don't, as I say, write. But when I first used to do Mick and Keith songs, they were just demonstration discs, and you know they weren't very good. They were sort of all right, but they're really very good now. The thing with Mick is Keith's very good, writes some very lovely tunes, and Mick tends to write very, very lyrics about things that happen every day, which is nice.
Very immediate.
Yeah, very. They may date very quickly, some of them, but they're very nice because they're all sort of about smoking more than 15 cigarettes a day because you'll catch cancer. And you see in 5 years' time when they've researched on cancer and let's hope they've found a cure, then it will be all sort of very old hat. But it's rather like some of these Georgian chronicles where they criticise everything. That's what he's doing really.
Yeah.
He's just criticising things through songs. It's the only way. It's a slightly more interesting. It works sometimes. Sometimes you think, how did he put that word in? What the hell is that doing there? But it works most of the time. It tends to be nice. Like that thing about the mother's little helper. It's a very funny thing. It's a bit sinister, but it's very... And it's quite true, but the only thing is it works better in America than it does here. Cause,
why?
Well, it's a song... Well, not many people over here take pills like they do in America. There's nothing to be scared of, as people think. It's just one of... Actually, just comments on things, which is nice.
It's more of a comment, isn't it?
Yeah, which is a nice thing, you know.
What about Painted Black? What sort of comment?
Painted Black. Well, that's just another way of saying me girl's buggered off and I'm left on my own and I see the world black, which has been said umpteen million times. You know, I don't think that's particularly wild in its approach. It's just the words are pretty abstract. But other than that, it's quite a straightforward story. But some of them are quite involved, which is nice, you know. And I think they're just going to get more like commentaries, that's all, with the sound behind them. Which, I mean, this is what Bob Dylan's doing, really. Now, with his backing.
About the sound behind, the word. How much do you think sex plays a part in
What's that going to do with sound?
your music?
I don't know, because I'm really quite a bit naive about things like that. Because I don't really think of it. I should imagine, as far as Mick's concerned, a lot, because Mick is the frontal piece of what. And like with the Beatles, every one of them, it's a whole thing, and the Who, it's all very. I think it must play a part.
Yeah.
But there again, I should have thought the Beatles wouldn't get anyone. If you're going to look at it like that, you'd think the Beatles would never get anyone out to see them anymore, since they're nearly all married. But there you are, you see. So I really can't answer that properly.
Right, what shall we? I meant really just in the actual sort of psychological impact of the music.
Well, the impact of the music? I don't know.
The sort of.
I don't know. I think it's more the person who's singing it, really. You could sing about sexual intercourse all night long, and it really wouldn't draw any effect. But if the person who's singing it has got one of those faces that women like, or then he's going to be a big success. You see, that's the funny thing about it. It really is only your face, which makes this sort of life to me a bit shallow.
How do you mean?
Well, it's all very silly, It isn't silly. It's sort of obvious things like having a wash, really, because there's just sort of obvious things that go through people's mind, like you must eat or something. So I suppose the sex thing is just an obvious thing which no one ever talks about, but it must be there. But it just nauseates me a bit.